Chapter 3 The Voice Out of the Mist. While young Matt was gone to the corral in the valley to see that the sheep were safely folded for the night, the two women were busy in the house with their after supper work. Mr. Matthews and his guest sat on the front porch. "My name is Howitt, Daniel Howitt," the man said in the answer to his host's question. But as he spoke, there was a manner that had a touch of embarrassment, and he continued quickly as if to prevent further question. "You have two remarkable children, sir. That boy is the finest specimen of manhood I've ever seen, and the girl is remarkable. Just remarkable, sir. You will pardon me, I'm sure, but I'm an enthusiastic lover of my kind, and I certainly have never seen such a pair." The grim face of the elder Matthews showed both pleasure and amusement. "You're mistaken, mister. The boy is mine, all right, and he's all that you say and more, I reckon. I doubt if there's a man in the hills that can match him today, not except Welsh Gibbs, and he's a mighty good boy, too. But the girl is a daughter of a neighbor and no kin at all." "Indeed!" exclaimed the other. "So you only have one child, then?" The amused smile left the face of the old mountaineer as he answered slowly. "There was 6 boys, sir. This one, Grant, is the youngest. The others, they lie over there." He pointed with his pipe to where a clump of pines not far from the house showed dark and tall against the last red glow of the sky. The stranger glanced at the big man's face in quick sympathy. "I only had 2, a boy and a girl," he said softly. "The mother and the girl have both been gone now for 20 years. The boy, he grew to be a man, but now he's left me." The deep voice faltered. "Pardon me, sir, for speaking of this, but my lad was so much like your boy over there. He was all I had, and now I'm very lonely, sir." There was a bond of fellowship in sorrow that knows no conventions. As the two men sat in the hush of the coming night, their faces turned toward the sober group of trees, they felt strongly drawn to one another. The mountaineer's companion spoke again, half to himself. "I wish that my dear ones had a resting place like that. In the crowded city cemetery, the ground is always shaken by the trampling of funeral processions." He buried his face in his hands. For some time the stranger sat thus, while his host spoke no word, and then lifting his head, the man looked away over the ridges just touched with the lingering light, and the valley below wrapped in the shadowy mist. "I came away from all of that because I said I must, and because I was hungry for just this." He waved his hand towards the glowing sky and the forest-clad hills. "This is good for me. It somehow seems to help me just to know how big God is. One could find peace here, surely, sir. One could find it here. Peace and strength." The mountaineer puffed hard at his pipe for a while, and then said gruffly, "Seems that way, mister, to them that don't know. But many's the time I've wished to God I'd never seen these here Ozarks. I used to feel just like you do, but I can't no more. They remind me now of him that blackened my life. He used to take on powerful about the beauty of the country, and all the time he was a turning it into a hell for them that had to stay here after he was gone." As he spoke, the anger and hatred grew dark in the giant's face, and the stranger saw the big hands clench and the huge frame grow tense with passion. And then, as if striving to not be ungracious, the woodsman said in a somewhat softer tone, "You can't see much of it this evening, though, account of the mist. It'll fair up by morning, I reckon. You can see a long way from here on a clear day." "Yes, indeed. replied Mr. Howitt in an odd tone. "One can see far from here, I am sure. We who live in the city see but little farther than across the street. We spend our days looking at the work of our own and our neighbors' hands, and small wonder our lives have so little of God in them when we come to touch with so little that God has made." "You live in a city, then, when you're at home?" said Mr. Matthews, looking curiously at his guest. "I did, when I had a home. I can't say that I live anywhere now, though." Old Matt leaned forward in his chair as if to speak again, and then paused. Someone was coming up the hill, and soon they distinguished the stalwart form of the son. Sammy, come from the house with an empty bucket, met the young men at the gate, and the two went forward towards the spring together. In silence, the men on the porch watched the moon as she slowly pushed her way up through the leafy screen on the mountain wall. Higher and higher she climbed until her rays fell into the valley below, and the drifting mists from the ridge to ridge became a sea of ghostly light. It was a weird scene, almost supernatural in its beauty. And then, from down on the spring, a young girl's laugh rose clearly, and the big mountaineer said in a low tone, "Mr. Howitt, you've got an education. It's easy to see that. I've always wanted to ask someone like you, do you believe in haunts? Do you reckon folks ever come back once they're dead and gone?" The man from the city saw that his big host was terribly in earnest, and answered quietly, "No, I don't believe in such things, Mr. Matthews, but if it should be true, I don't see why we should fear the dead." The other shook his head. "I don't know. I don't know, sir. I always said I didn't believe, but some things is mighty queer." He seemed to be shaping his thought for further speech, when again the girl's laughter rang clear along the mountainside, and the young people were returning from the spring. The mountaineer relit his pipe, while Matt and Sammy seated themselves on the step, and Miss Matthews come from the house and joined the group. "We just naturally got to find somebody to stay with them sheep, Dad," said the son. "There ain't nobody there tonight, and as near as I can make out, there's 3 ewes and their lambs missin'. There ain't a bit of use in us trying to depend on Pete." "I'll ride over on to Bear Creek tomorrow and see if I can get that fella Buck told us about," returned the father. "You find it hard to get help out here on the ranch?" inquired the stranger. "Yes, sir, we do," answered old Matt. "We had a good enough fellow till about a month ago. Seemed then we'd been getting along the best as we can. But with some a-staying out on the range and not coming in, and the wolves getting into the corral at night, we'll lose mighty nigh all the profits this year. The worst of it, there ain't much show to get a man, unless that one over there in Bear Creek will come. I reckon, though, he'll be like the rest." He sat staring gloomily into the night. "Is the work that difficult?" Mr. Howard asked. "Difficult? No. There ain't nothing to do but tending the sheep. The man has to stay at the ranch of nights, though." Mr. Howard was wondering what staying at the ranch nights could have to do with the difficulty when up from the valley below. From out of the darkness and the mists came a strange sound. A sound as if someone was singing a song without words. So wild and weird was the melody, so passionately sweet the voice, it seemed impossible that the music should come from human lips. It was more as though some genie of the forest-clad hills wandered through the mist, singing as he went with joy of his possessions. Miss Matthews came close to her husband's side and placed her hand upon his shoulder as he half rose from his chair, his pipe fallen to the floor. Young Matt rose to his feet and moved closer to the girl, who was also standing. The stranger alone kept his seat, and he noted the agitation of the others in wonderment. For some moment the sound continued, now soft and low, with the sweet sadness of the wind in the pines, and then, clear and ringing, it echoed and re echoed across the mountain. Now, pleadingly, as though a soul in darkness prayed, a gleam of light again raising, swelling, exalting, as in glad triumph, only to die away once more to the moaning wail, seemed to at last to hopelessness lose itself in the midst. Slowly, old Matt sank back into his seat, and the stranger heard him mutter, "Poor boy, poor boy." Aunt Molly was weeping. Suddenly Sammy sprang from the steps, running down the walk to the gate, and sent a clear, piercing call over the valley. "Oh, Pete!" The group on the porch listened intently, and again the girl called, and yet again, "Oh, Pete!" But there was no answer. "It's no use, honey," said Miss Matthews, breaking the silence. "It just ain't no use." And the young girl came slowly back to the porch. End of chapter 3.